The soft crackle of a distant hearth fills the room, mingling with the gentle hiss of molten sand as it meets the fierce embrace of fire. The air carries a warm, sweet scent of heated earth, a delicate perfume that promises creation, transformation, and a subtle hint of danger. In this quiet, flickering world, the shape of possibility itself bends and glimmers, waiting to take form under skilled hands. You step lightly, careful not to disturb the scattered tools on the worn wooden table, the small metal tongs, the delicate rods, the containers of powdered minerals, each one holding a secret waiting to be unlocked. The room hums with anticipation, as if it has always known that here, in this modest workshop, ordinary sand and fire will become something extraordinary: glass. It is strange to think that something so fragile, so fleeting, could captivate human fascination for thousands of years. Perhaps it is the paradox: solid, yet transparent, ordinary, yet magical, functional, yet breathtakingly beautiful. As your eyes adjust to the glow of the furnace, you see the molten blob of glass, fiery and restless, trembling as it clings to the iron rod. It is alive in a way that is almost imperceptible, shifting and swirling with every movement of the artisan's hand. With each breath, the glass seems to whisper stories of ancient deserts where sand first met fire, of mysterious potters in Mesopotamia and Egypt, of hands long vanished from the earth, shaping the world in ways both practical and mystical. You watch quietly as the artisan, the master of this quiet alchemy, begins to coax the molten glass into a form both delicate and purposeful. The air shivers around the furnace, carrying the scent of molten sand, soda, and lime, the components that will hold this creation together for centuries. Each turn of the rod, each precise blow, each gentle pull of the tongs transforms the raw, glowing mass into something that seems almost alive, a reflection of the sky, the sun, and the human imagination. You imagine this same process repeating itself through the ages, in huts and temples, in bustling markets and silent workshops, a secret language of creation passed down from one generation to the next. The history of glass is as intricate and layered as the substance itself. It begins, perhaps by accident, in the heat of a desert kiln, where sand fused with natural minerals under the intense heat of a fire. Yet from these humble beginnings, civilizations would discover a new medium of expression, a material that could be both practical and sacred. Beads glimmered on necklaces in ancient tombs, small containers held precious oils and perfumes, and mirrors reflected faces eager to see themselves and their place in the world. Glass became a bridge between the natural and the divine, between function and wonder, between the earth beneath human feet and the light of the sun above. You feel the centuries stretch before you, as though the glow of this furnace reaches back in time. You hear the faint echo of Roman glass blowers, their cheeks puffed, their lungs trained to shape the molten material into cups, bottles, and intricate vessels. You can almost see the streets of Rome, lined with tiny shops and markets, the glint of sunlight bouncing off the surfaces of polished glass, a luxury within reach of those willing to pay for beauty and utility alike. The Romans did not simply make glass, they transformed it, discovering techniques that would ripple through the centuries, from the hands of Venetian artisans to the stained glass windows of Gothic cathedrals, each creation a testament to human curiosity and ingenuity. In the hush of the workshop, you sense the intimacy of this craft. The glassblower leans close, shaping a tiny vessel with painstaking care, the firelight dancing on the curves of the still malleable material. It is a dialogue, unspoken yet profound, between human and element, between intention and transformation. Every breath, every motion, every subtle shift in temperature and timing affects the final form. Here, in the delicate balance of heat and skill, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. You realize that this fascination, this reverence for glass, is not simply about seeing or using an object. It is about witnessing the birth of something fleeting yet eternal, a moment crystallized in fire and sand. Outside, the world moves in quiet rhythms, unaware of the miracles taking place within this small, humble room. The wind brushes through distant trees, carrying whispers of centuries past. In some distant city, in a crowded marketplace, the glint of a glass cup catches a merchant's eye. A child stares at a bead, enchanted by its tiny, perfect world encased in crystal. In a cathedral, sunlight streams through coloured panes, transforming sacred spaces into kaleidoscopes of light and shadow. These are the echoes of the first spark that ignited human fascination with glass, a fascination that continues to this day, drawing us into stories of creation, craftsmanship, and the delicate, shimmering beauty that exists at the intersection of fire, earth, and human hands. As you step closer to the glowing rod, the heat brushing your face, you feel an almost hypnotic calm. Time slows, and you're transported through millennia, through deserts, marketplaces, workshops, and cathedrals, witnessing the evolution of a material both humble and miraculous. In this quiet space, the soft murmur of fire and molten sand invites contemplation, reflection, and wonder. You realize that glass is more than a material. It is a mirror of human creativity, an archive of history, a vessel of memory, and a testament to the enduring dialogue between people and the elements they seek to shape. And as you exhale slowly, you begin to understand that to watch glass being made is to watch time itself unfold, fragile, luminous, and endlessly captivating. Imagine walking through a sun-baked marketplace in ancient Mesopotamia. The air is thick with the aroma of baked bread, pressed clay, and spices trading hands, yet among all the familiar scents, something unusual glimmers in the sunlight. Tiny beads, smooth and cool to the touch, catch the eye, their colours swirling like captured sunlight and desert skies. Glass, though new and rare, has begun to enter the lives of everyday people, not just as a luxury for kings or priests, but as something that can be held, admired, and even used in small, intimate ways. A child runs past carrying a string of these delicate beads, the faint weight a reminder of how this material has slowly woven itself into human life. In these earliest days, glass was often discovered by accident. Sand fused with soda or ash in the heat of a kiln, producing small, shiny fragments that seemed almost magical. Imagine the curiosity of a craftsman noticing that a bit of molten sand, once cooled, had hardened into a translucent, glowing shape. This accidental creation would spark the beginning of a craft that would endure for thousands of years. At first, the objects were small, beads for necklaces, tiny bottles to hold precious oils, perfume, or medicines. Even in these modest forms, glass began to transform the ordinary rhythm of life, adding a touch of permanence and beauty to otherwise simple routines. In Egypt, glass was a symbol of both utility and status. Wealthy households often had small vessels to store oils, perfumes, and ointments, smooth containers that preserved their contents, while adding a gentle elegance to everyday life. Picture a hand reaching for a tiny blue bottle, tracing its cool surface, and feeling the faint ridges from its creation. Glass allowed people to interact with their belongings in a new way. It was not just something to use, but something to admire. Even the simplest household could be graced with a cup or small jar that refracted light in unusual, almost mystical patterns, bringing a quiet sense of wonder into daily chores. Trade spread glass further. Caravans carried fragile beads and small vessels across deserts and rivers, connecting villages and cities. A merchant carefully wrapped tiny vials of coloured glass, knowing that each one could be exchanged for spices, cloth, or silver. Glass became a currency of fascination, objects that were valued as much for their beauty as for their function. In kitchens and workshops, people began to adapt it to their needs. Small containers for storing herbs, oils or water, ornaments for adorning clothing or hair, simple mirrors for personal grooming. In these simple acts, glass quietly entered the fabric of everyday existence. Imagine a quiet household in ancient Egypt. The sun filters through a small opening in the wall, touching the smooth surface of a small glass jar. A mother pours a fragrant oil into it, the liquid shimmering as it settles, the glass reflecting the golden light. Children play nearby, their fingers tracing patterns on the sides of tiny beads strung together for decoration. Every object tells a story, and the glass holds both function and memory. It endures in ways clay or wood cannot, fragile yet lasting, a companion to human life across centuries. In Mesopotamia, glass was often hidden in plain sight. Small bottles lined shelves, each carefully labelled or marked with symbols. They stored perfumes, medicines, and pigments used to colour textiles or skin. You can almost hear the faint clink as one is lifted and set back down, a sound familiar and comforting in the quiet of a household. Even in workshops, glass appeared in tools, a small vial for ink, a container for precious oils, or a bead incorporated into jewellery. It quietly connected the practical to the aesthetic, the everyday to the extraordinary. And yet, despite its beauty, glass remained delicate. Its fragility demanded careful handling, teaching early humans patience and respect. Families learned to pass it down from generation to generation, to repair what could be repaired, to admire what could only be observed. Its presence in everyday life, whether in a kitchen, a workshop, or a child's necklace, reminded people that even ordinary routines could hold moments of fascination. The glint of sunlight on a tiny bottle, the smooth weight of a bead in a hand, or the faint shimmer of a glass vessel filled with water could transform the mundane into something quietly magical. Even now, as you picture these small objects, you can almost feel the connection across time. A hand reaches for a tiny vial of perfumed oil. A child admires the iridescent beads on a string. A craftsman marvels at the accidental glow of molten sand. Glass, in its earliest forms, was not just a material. It was a companion to human life, quietly present in kitchens, markets, and homes, touching every ordinary act with a faint, enduring magic. It is easy to imagine, in the hush of an ancient household, how these simple objects could inspire wonder, curiosity, and even joy, long before glass became commonplace or industrialized. As the sun sets over the Mesopotamian plains, or filters through the reeds along the Nile, the gentle glimmer of glass catches the light one last time. It is a reminder that history is not only found in grand monuments or battles, but in the quiet presence of everyday objects. The cups we drink from, the jars that store our oils and grains, the beads that adorn our garments, they all hold a story, a link to the hands that shaped them, the people who treasured them, and the moments in life they quietly illuminated. Glass, fragile yet enduring, has been a witness to human life from its earliest days, a subtle companion that continues to shine in the rhythm of ordinary existence. The streets of a bustling Roman city stretch before you, sun warming the pale stone of buildings, the scent of baked bread and olive oil drifting through the air. Among the sounds of merchants calling out their wares and the quiet shuffle of sandals on cobblestones, a subtle glint catches your eye. It is a cup perhaps no larger than a small fist, resting on a wooden table outside a modest home. Its surface reflects the golden sunlight, clear yet soft, ordinary yet extraordinary. This is glass in the Roman world, an everyday object, familiar, practical, and quietly enchanting. Unlike in earlier civilizations, glass in Rome was no longer a rare luxury. It had become a companion to daily life, shaping routines in kitchens, baths, and markets across the empire. The Romans discovered a revolutionary method, glass blowing. With a single breath, molten glass could expand, stretch, and form into vessels of remarkable variety. You can almost hear the faint puff, the delicate hiss as the material responds to human breath. soft as a whisper, yet shaping something that will endure centuries. The craft allowed for a variety of objects that touched almost every aspect of Roman life. Cups for wine, bottles for oil and perfumes, small jars for cosmetics, and even simple vessels for storing water or food. All these ordinary items were now accessible, light, and beautiful. Imagine a hand picking up a cup, feeling its smooth weight, the gentle curve fitting perfectly to the fingers, the clarity of the glass allowing the deep red of wine or the pale shimmer of water to catch the light. Every Roman household had at least a few glass vessels, often tucked carefully in cupboards, or displayed on tables for use and admiration. They were not only functional, but aesthetic, etched with simple patterns, sometimes coloured with faint blues, greens, or amber tones, catching the sun in subtle, shifting hues. Children might play with beads strung on thin threads, their laughter mingling with the faint clink of glass on wood. In kitchens, glass jars held herbs, oils, and sauces, their transparency a quiet convenience, allowing cooks to glimpse contents without opening lids. Glass became an unassuming partner in domestic life, enhancing both function and beauty without drawing attention to its rarity. The Roman baths, a central part of daily life, were another place where glass became ordinary yet essential. Small glass bottles held oils, perfumes, and ointments, used for cleaning, massage, and grooming. Picture a quiet corner of a bathhouse, steam curling lazily around marble columns, as someone lifts a small vessel to pour fragrant oil into their hands. The light catches the curved surface of the glass, refracting gently in the misty air. Even in such public, bustling spaces, glass maintained a delicate presence, a witness to everyday rituals of cleanliness, care, and comfort. It was practical, yes, but also quietly luxurious, a small indulgence in the rhythm of ordinary life. Markets, too, were filled with glass objects for everyday use. Merchants displayed cups, bottles, and jars on simple wooden tables, the sun glinting off each smooth surface. Travellers, shoppers, and citizens alike were drawn to the colours and forms, choosing items for home use or gifts for family and friends. Even small, inexpensive items could transform a household. A tiny blue bottle to hold a fragrant oil, a set of clear cups for evening wine, or a jar for storing grains. The commonality of glass in Roman life was remarkable. It was no longer reserved for temples or palaces, but threaded through the routines of ordinary citizens, connecting them in subtle ways to the wider culture and technology of the empire. Mirrors, too, became part of everyday life in Rome, small pieces of polished glass backed with metal reflecting faces and spaces. People used them for grooming, dressing, and self-reflection. You can almost see a Roman woman adjusting her hair, a young man brushing dirt from his tunic, both glancing into the smooth, reflective surface. The presence of glass in these private, ordinary acts reminds us that even simple materials can carry meaning, blending the practical and the aesthetic. These mirrors were small companions to daily life, capturing moments that might otherwise pass unnoticed, quietly embedding themselves into routines, habits, and personal care. Despite its increasing availability, glass remained delicate. Families learned to handle it carefully, to store it properly, and to repair or cherish what could not be replaced. A simple cup or bottle held memories, small acts of care, and a sense of permanence in a fragile world. It connected households, markets, and bathhouses, threading a subtle continuity through daily life. The Romans may have used glass every day, but in each vessel, each jar, each cup there was a quiet marvel, a testament to human ingenuity, a reflection of light, and a companion to the ordinary, unnoticed moments of existence. Even in the bustling streets and quiet homes, the glint of glass catches the sun one last time before dusk. A child holds a bead, fascinated by the swirl of colours within. A merchant carefully wraps a small bottle for a customer. A family gathers around a table, drinking from simple cups, the clarity of the glass catching the fading light. Through it all, glass remains both practical and magical, ordinary and extraordinary. It is a reminder that the simplest objects, cups, jars, bottles, mirrors, carry with them the story of human life, connecting the routines of everyday existence to centuries of craft, innovation, and quiet wonder. The soft murmur of a medieval village carries through narrow streets lined with timbered houses and cobblestones worn smooth by countless footsteps. The air is fragrant with the scent of baking bread, smoke from chimneys, and the faint tang of herbs hanging in small bunches from doorways. Amid these familiar smells, a quiet sparkle catches the eye, coloured glass catching the sunlight as it streams through a small window, fragmenting light into gentle patterns that dance across the stone floor. In the medieval world, glass was no longer a rare curiosity limited to the palaces of kings or the temples of priests. It had begun to thread itself into everyday life, subtle yet remarkable, in homes, churches, workshops, and marketplaces alike. In small homes, glass was practical and beautiful. Simple vessels held water, oils, and grains. Picture a mother gently pouring fragrant oil from a small green-tinted bottle into a dish, the liquid shimmering as it moves. Children play nearby, tracing fingers across smooth beads strung for necklaces or sewn onto garments. Every object is a small marvel: a glass cup for evening ale, a tiny jar for storing spices, a polished bead reflecting candlelight in a quiet corner. Even the simplest of households could possess these items, each one a tiny link to the broader currents of craft, trade, and daily life. Stained glass had begun to transform religious spaces. In grand cathedrals, sunlight streamed through vast, colourful windows, filling interiors with hues of red, blue, and gold. But these were not merely decorative. They were part of the rhythm of daily life, marking time and occasion. Parishioners gazed upon them as they prayed, finding both beauty and guidance in the scenes depicted. Even those who could not read could understand the stories told in light. The glass in these windows, while grand and extraordinary, was connected to the ordinary as well. Artisans, labourers, and parishioners all interacted with it in ways that shaped their day-to-day experience, whether through work, worship, or quiet reflection. Workshops, too, were full of glass objects for everyday use. Craftsmen created vessels for kitchens and markets, small jars for spices, cups for wine, bottles for perfumes or medicines. Imagine the gentle hiss of molten glass as it cools in moulds, the faint tap of a hammer shaping a delicate rim. Each piece, though functional, carries with it a quiet elegance. Merchants displayed these wares on wooden tables, catching the eye of villagers passing by. Even inexpensive glass items were valued for their beauty and utility, small treasures that could transform ordinary routines into moments of delight. The clink of a cup on a table, the cool touch of a jar in hand, the faint shimmer of sunlight on a bead. These are the subtle, quiet pleasures that medieval glass brought into everyday life. Glass also found its way into domestic decoration. Small coloured panes might be set into shutters, catching light in private rooms and kitchens. Mirrors, though rare, allowed people to see themselves and tend to personal grooming. Even the humblest household could possess a small polished glass surface, providing reflection, clarity, and a tiny sense of luxury. In kitchens, glass containers held oils, vinegar, or water, their transparency a simple convenience for cooks, who could see contents without opening lids. In workshops, small jars stored pigments, inks, or precious liquids used for various crafts. In every setting, glass was both practical and quietly enchanting, threading beauty through routine. Trade routes spread glass across regions, connecting villages, towns, and cities. Merchants carefully packed fragile bottles, jars, and beads, transporting them along rivers, roads, and seas. A small green bottle in a modest kitchen might have travelled hundreds of miles, a reminder that everyday objects often carry extraordinary journeys. Children might play with beads or watch artisans shape small vessels, learning patience, care, and the value of beauty in ordinary objects. Even as glass became more common, its fragility demanded respect, creating a subtle, daily mindfulness in the people who used it. The texture and sound of glass also shaped human interaction. Imagine lifting a cup, feeling its smooth weight, hearing the gentle clink as it meets a wooden table, and realizing that these ordinary moments are shared across centuries. In homes, workshops, and markets, glass connected people through common experience, the care required to handle it, the delight in its beauty, and the practical convenience it offered. Even in moments of quiet solitude, a person might run fingers along a polished jar, trace patterns in a bead, or watch sunlight fracture through coloured panes, finding simple joy in the material itself. Despite its practicality, medieval glass retained a sense of wonder. Its colours, shapes, and clarity captivated the eye, transforming everyday objects into treasures. A simple jar of oil, a cup for wine, or a string of beads could evoke fascination, admiration, and even quiet reflection. Households treasured these objects, passing them down through generations, mending them when broken, and finding satisfaction in their continued presence. The fragile yet enduring nature of glass mirrored the rhythm of daily life itself, delicate, fleeting, yet capable of carrying memory, function, and beauty across time. As evening falls over the village, sunlight softening to amber and gold, the faint glimmer of glass lingers. A child holds a small bead, turning it gently in fingers, mesmerized by the swirl of colour. A mother sets a tiny cup on a table for evening wine, the surface catching the last rays of daylight. In quiet workshops, artisans continue shaping simple vessels, each one a small act of creation, care, and continuity. Even in the most ordinary routines, glass endures, practical, beautiful, and quietly magical. It is a companion to human life, threading through kitchens, homes, and workshops, connecting daily activities with centuries of craft, wonder, and subtle delight. The quiet streets of a Renaissance town are filled with the soft murmur of daily life. Merchants calling out prices, the distant clatter of horse hooves on cobblestones, and the gentle rustle of linen in the warm breeze. In the windows of modest homes, sunlight dances through small panes of glass, refracting into faint colours that shimmer across the walls and floors. Glass, once a fragile novelty, has now become a familiar companion in everyday life. Its presence is subtle yet transformative, threading elegance and practicality through kitchens, workshops, studies, and markets alike. In this period, glass not only holds the ordinary, water, wine, oils, and perfumes, but also opens new ways for humans to see, explore, and understand the world. In the homes of ordinary people, glass objects are quietly integrated into daily routines. Small bottles hold oils for cooking and medicine, jars store grains and herbs, and cups are used for wine or water. A mother reaches for a slender green bottle to pour a fragrant oil into a dish, the liquid shimmering as it flows, catching the soft sunlight filtering through the window. Children play nearby, tracing fingers along smooth beads strung together for necklaces, watching the colours shift in the light. Even in simple households, glass adds a subtle elegance to ordinary moments, transforming practical objects into small wonders of everyday life. Renaissance artisans brought refinement to glassmaking. In Venice, the island of Murano became the centre of innovation, producing delicate, transparent glass and experimenting with intricate colours, patterns, and shapes. Imagine walking through a workshop where thin rods of molten glass are twisted and pulled, forming cups, bottles, and beads with meticulous care. Each object is a testament to skill and patience, functional yet beautiful. Even ordinary glass objects, beakers for water, jars for spices, and simple cups for wine benefit from these innovations. Their clarity, elegance, and subtle colour elevate routine tasks into moments of quiet appreciation. Scientific glass also began to appear in everyday life, though in specialised contexts. Lenses for reading, magnifying glasses for artisans, and early microscopes for scholars transformed how humans perceived the world. A humble scholar might hold a small glass lens to examine a leaf, or a merchant might use a magnifying tool to inspect the fine details of coins or jewellery. Even if these items were rare, they introduced the idea that glass could extend human perception, turning ordinary observation into something extraordinary. In kitchens, workshops, and studies, glass became both practical and revelatory, quietly enhancing the tasks and experiences of daily life. Markets of the Renaissance are alive with the subtle glimmer of glass. Merchants display small bottles, jars, and cups, their surfaces reflecting sunlight in soft, shifting patterns. Travellers and townspeople alike admire the objects not just for their utility but for their beauty. Children watch as artisans shape molten glass into beads and small vessels, learning through observation the value of care, patience, and craftsmanship. Even the simplest objects, beakers for oils, small containers for perfumes, and cups for drinks, carry a quiet marvel, reminding ordinary people of the possibilities hidden in everyday life. Glass also began to enter domestic decoration in new ways. Small panes set into wooden shutters catch the light, casting gentle reflections and muted colours across rooms. Mirrors, now more common than in earlier centuries, allow people to see themselves and tend to grooming or clothing. Imagine a young woman adjusting the folds of her gown in the reflection of a polished glass surface, or a child carefully examining a bead in hand, marvelling at its colour and clarity. In kitchens, transparent jars allow cooks to see spices, herbs, and liquids without opening lids, simplifying routine tasks. Every interaction with glass, whether for work, play, or reflection, carries with it a subtle beauty and quiet delight. The presence of glass in everyday life also encourages care, mindfulness, and attention. Its fragility reminds people to handle objects gently, to preserve what is useful and beautiful. Families treasure these items, passing them down, repairing what is broken, and taking pleasure in small details. Even simple jars, cups, or beads become vessels of memory, connecting generations through ordinary acts of use and appreciation. In this way, glass threads through domestic life, linking practicality with aesthetic enjoyment, function with wonder, and routine with reflection. Even in the quieter corners of towns and homes, the subtle magic of glass is evident. Sunlight filters through a tiny bottle, illuminating the amber oil inside. A scholar lifts a lens to examine a page of notes, the magnified letters revealing new worlds of detail. A child turns a small glass bead in fingers, mesmerized by its colours and smooth weight. In kitchens, workshops, and studies, glass quietly enhances daily life, connecting ordinary tasks to centuries of craft, experimentation, and beauty. Its presence, though unassuming, transforms the mundane into something quietly remarkable. As the sun sets over the town, casting long shadows and soft golden light, the glimmer of glass lingers. A mother places a small cup on a table for evening wine, its surface catching the last rays. An artisan carefully sets down a newly shaped vessel, reflecting on the skill and patience required to create it. Children play with beads, their laughter mingling with the faint clink of glass against wood. In every household, in every workshop, in every market, glass remains a companion to daily life. Practical, fragile, and endlessly captivating. It bridges ordinary routines and extraordinary human ingenuity, threading the rhythm of everyday existence with quiet beauty, reflection, and delight. The soft hum of a city in the modern era carries through streets lined with tall buildings, glass windows reflecting sunlight like countless tiny mirrors. The scent of bread baking, faint exhaust from carriages and early vehicles, and the subtle aroma of shops opening mingle in the morning air. Glass, once a fragile rarity, has now become an inseparable part of daily life. It is everywhere, in windows, bottles, cups, jars, and even in the lenses that bring the world into clearer focus. Unlike the past, when glass was fragile and precious, modern industrial techniques have made it abundant, accessible, and practical, yet it retains the quiet magic that has fascinated humans for millennia. In households, glass is omnipresent. Kitchen tables hold drinking glasses, jars of preserves, and bottles of oil or vinegar. Imagine a mother reaching for a small glass bottle to pour olive oil into a pan, the sunlight catching its surface as the liquid flows, smooth and golden. Children play with small glass marbles or look curiously into clear jars filled with colourful candies. Everyday routines, preparing meals, storing liquids, or serving drinks, are now accompanied by a quiet appreciation for the clarity, smoothness, and durability of glass. Even in its most ordinary forms, it transforms simple acts into experiences tinged with beauty and functionality. Industrialization brought glass to the masses. Factories churned out uniform bottles, jars, windows, and containers at a scale unimaginable in earlier times. The streets of towns and cities became lined with shop windows displaying rows of glassware, cups, bowls, vases, and bottles, all reflecting sunlight in dazzling patterns. Even inexpensive items, mass-produced for daily use, carried a subtle charm. A clear bottle of water or milk, a simple cup for tea, a small jar of preserves, all were now within reach of ordinary people, threading practicality and quiet delight into everyday routines. Children, fascinated by the gleam and smooth weight of glass, found small treasures in marbles, beads, and tiny containers, learning from an early age the tactile and visual joys of this enduring material. Windows, too, transformed daily life. In homes, shops, and schools, large panes of glass allowed sunlight to fill rooms, illuminating interiors in ways previously unimaginable. Light filtered through translucent glass, softening shadows and revealing colours and textures within. Families could now observe the world outside without stepping into the elements, and the rhythm of daily life was subtly enhanced by this connection between interior and exterior, private and public. Even small panes in modest homes allowed ordinary people to experience light, colour, and warmth in ways that elevated simple routines. In addition to household uses, glass became essential in scientific and practical innovations. Lenses, eyeglasses, microscopes, and telescopes extended human perception, transforming how people saw the world. A student lifting a glass lens to examine a text, a craftsman inspecting fine details of work through a magnifying glass, or a hobbyist peering into a microscope. All these ordinary acts are made possible through everyday glass. Even in the simplest household, magnifying glasses or spectacles allowed reading, observation, and learning, threading glass into the fabric of modern life in quiet, practical ways. The presence of glass in daily life also encourages mindfulness and care. Though stronger and more durable than its predecessors, it remains fragile, requiring gentle handling, thoughtful placement, and occasional cleaning or repair. Families and individuals learn to value these objects, passing them down through generations or using them with care and attention. Even ordinary objects, drinking glasses, jars for storage, window panes, or containers for spices, carry with them centuries of craft, ingenuity, and quiet fascination. They are practical, yes, but they also delight the eye, engage the senses, and elevate everyday experience. Markets and shops are filled with glass in countless forms. Small jars of preserves, delicate bottles of perfume, clear drinking cups, and everyday containers line shelves, ready to be chosen and brought into homes. Children marvel at the reflections, colours, and smoothness of these objects, picking up marbles or small glass ornaments to examine and play with. The interaction with glass, lifting, holding, pouring, observing, remains intimate and quietly magical. Ordinary routines are enhanced simply by the presence of these objects, bridging practicality and aesthetic appreciation. Even the modern city itself is defined by glass. Windows on buildings, streetlights, and shop displays transform the urban environment into a space filled with reflections, colour, and light. The ordinary act of walking past a shop, gazing through a window, or lifting a glass at dinner carries with it centuries of human history, craftsmanship, and fascination. Glass remains both utilitarian and enchanting, ordinary and extraordinary. Its presence threads through kitchens, workshops, schools, streets, and homes, connecting the rhythms of daily life to a long continuum of human innovation and aesthetic delight. As evening descends over the city, sunlight softening to gold and amber, the glow of glass persists. A family gathers for dinner, lifting drinking glasses and small jars, their surfaces catching the fading light. A child rolls a marble along the table, enchanted by its colours and smoothness. In workshops, factories, and homes, glass continues to be shaped, polished, and used, threading practicality, beauty, and fascination through everyday routines. It is a silent companion, fragile yet enduring, ordinary yet captivating, a material that has quietly accompanied human life from ancient deserts to bustling modern streets, transforming the mundane into moments of quiet wonder. As the day fades into night, the soft glow of lamps and candles reflects off the glass around us, illuminating objects both ordinary and extraordinary. From the tiny beads of ancient Mesopotamia to the shimmering windows of Renaissance cathedrals, from delicate Roman cups to the everyday bottles, jars, and panes that fill modern homes, glass has quietly threaded itself through human life. It is a companion to our routines, a witness to our history, and a reflection of human ingenuity, patience, and care. Consider the hands that shaped it, over thousands of years, the artisans who first discovered molten sand, the Roman craftsmen who mastered blowing techniques, the medieval glassmakers who added colour and subtlety, the Renaissance innovators who expanded both beauty and science, and the modern workers who turned it into everyday objects that we now take for granted. Each generation has left a trace in the glimmer of glass, a small legacy passed from hand to hand, home to home. Yet glass is more than history, it is experience. It invites touch, sight, and reflection. The cool smoothness of a cup in your hand, the way sunlight fractures into patterns through a window, the quiet clink of a marble or a bottle on a wooden table. These are moments of connection, ordinary yet quietly magical. In kitchens, workshops, markets, and homes, glass transforms the mundane into something captivating, reminding us to notice, to pause, and to appreciate. Even as we live in a world filled with glass, cups, bottles, windows, mirrors, lenses, and decorations, we carry with us a long story of discovery and creativity. Each object we touch is part of a continuum, linking us to ancient civilizations, to craftsmen and families long gone, and to the quiet rhythms of everyday life that have always been enriched by this luminous material. As you settle into your space, perhaps with a small glass of water by your side or a window letting in the last rays of light, allow yourself to reflect on the ordinary yet extraordinary presence of glass in our lives. It is fragile yet enduring, practical yet enchanting, a material that has quietly shaped human existence for thousands of years. Its journey is a reminder that even the simplest objects can hold beauty, history, and wonder. And as the evening deepens, the soft glimmer of glass lingers in memory and imagination, a gentle light accompanying the quiet rhythm of life, inviting calm, curiosity, and reflection. From the deserts of ancient Mesopotamia to the bustling streets of modern cities, glass remains a silent companion, a testament to human creativity and a quiet reminder that even everyday objects can shine with magic.